and welcome back. Today's video is probably going to be a lot longer because this case is a roller coaster. Today we're going to be looking into the case of Michael Barrymore. He was a TV presenter in the 80s and 90s. I had never heard of him because I wasn't born until 2000, but apparently a lot of other people had. But yeah, let's just get straight into it. So, Michael Barrymore was born on the 4th of May 1952, which makes him 68 years old today. He was born in Bermondsey in London, and he was actually born with the name Michael Kieran Parker. His father left the family when he was only 11 years old, and Michael never saw him again. Now, I'm going to skim through his career quite quickly because he has done so much and he's achieved so many awards, but they're pretty much irrelevant to the case, to be honest. But I feel like he deserves a little bit of backstory. So he worked as a redcoat in Butlins, and then he moved on to work in the West End. While he was working in the West End, he met a woman called Cheryl St. Clair in 1974. 2 years later, in 1976, Cheryl and Michael got married. But Michael had to actually bribe his mum so that she wouldn't expose an 18-month love affair that Michael had had with a man. Cheryl then became his manager and was quite honestly the mastermind behind all of his success. He won the 1975 edition of New Faces, and he then became a regular panellist on the show Blankety Blank. He then got jobs as a warm-up for Generation Game and other theatre shows. He appeared in Russ Abbott's Madhouse in 1981 and 1982. And then in 1983 he got his first sketch show, which was very creatively named The Michael Barrymore Show. After just one series of this show, Michael walked out of his contract with the producing company. So that didn't last very long. He then became the presenter of a BBC game show called Get Set Go, and he appeared in countless Royal Variety performances. In 1986, he became the host of a show called Strike It Lucky, and this was his first long-term presenting role. In 1995, Barrymore came out as gay, and subsequently him and Cheryl got divorced in 1996. In 1998, he recorded 2 new series called My Kind of Music and Kids Say the Funniest Things. He also recorded a further series of Strike It Lucky, which was now renamed Strike It Rich. In the year 2000, he started to move into more acting roles. So that is a basic rundown of how his career went. On the 31st of March 2001, Barrymore was having a party at his home in Essex. At that party, a 31-year-old man called Stuart Lubbock died. 3 witnesses, including Barrymore himself, claimed that they had found Lubbock's body floating in the pool. However, they did all disagree on whether they found him floating on top of the pool or at the bottom of the pool, with Barrymore himself claiming that he was floating on top of the pool. The cause of Lubbock's death was officially ruled to be drowning, and he had alcohol and several different drugs in his system. The post-mortem also revealed that he had anal injuries, which was confirmed by several forensic pathologists to be consistent with sexual assault. Since this case has come under much scrutiny and is highly debated, since then a lot of forensic pathologists have looked into it themselves, and a lot of them have come to very different conclusions to that of the original investigation. Now, for the ease of understanding, I'm going to go through those now as opposed to when they were actually made, because it fits into the storyline better. So an expert in drowning named Dr. Calder looked into this case. He said that he finds it very unlikely that the cause of Lubbock's death was actually drowning as originally stated. He said the lungs were not heavy enough and they didn't overlap in the chest cavity. He also said there was no froth in Lubbock's lungs, and apparently these are all normal signs that a victim has drowned. It was also found that petechiae were found on Lubbock's face and neck. Now, petechiae are tiny little red dots that appear, which are tiny hemorrhages. These are usually caused on the face and neck if someone has been strangled or put in a very tight headlock, not if somebody drowns. Forensic pathologists also said that the injuries to the anus and anal cavity were nothing short of horrific, with blood actually seeping through the cloth that was covering his body in the morgue. So clearly, these findings don't really support the idea that he just fell into a pool and drowned. They support that something else must have happened that night. Allegations were then made that Barrymore had been seen rubbing cocaine into the gums of Lubbock at the party earlier that night. Tabloids then also accused Barrymore of hosting drug-fueled orgies in his house. However, Barrymore denied all claims that any sex had happened that night at the party. On the 6th of June 2001, Barrymore and 2 other party guests were arrested on suspicion of murder. These 2 guests were Justin Merritt, who was unemployed at the time, and a man called Jonathan Kennedy, who was a drag queen and who was Barrymore's partner at the time of the party. So an inquest then took place in September of 2002, but it reached an open verdict. Since then, in future trials, lots of details of this inquest were released to the public. Again, for ease of understanding, I'm going to throw them in now so that I don't have to go back on myself and come back to the inquest. So the media had falsely reported that the house was some kind of mansion, when in reality it was a bungalow that resembled a cottage. The number of people at the party was also massively exaggerated, with the media making claims that it was roughly 160 people, when in reality it was a dinner party with 9 guests. This might seem unimportant, but when you think about it, 160 people in a mansion and 1 person drowns in a pool, it doesn't seem that suspicious. It's a big house, it's crowded, people aren't going to really notice if 1 person goes missing. However, when you scale that down to a bungalow with 9 dinner guests and 1 person goes missing, how did the 8 survivors not have any information at all about what happened? Anyway, it was then also disclosed that when Lubbock's body was found, Barrymore left the house, stating that he was scared that the press would show up. So let's get this straight. Lubbock's body is recovered from the pool, and while the other party guests are performing CPR on his body, Barrymore is going through his drawers. He then leaves the house carrying something under his arm. Barrymore's solicitors claim he was just carrying a jumper. He was leaving the house, it was going to be cold, he took a jumper. However, police have never been given this jumper as evidence, so nobody knows what Barrymore was actually leaving the house with that night. This also means Barrymore had left his house before the police had arrived, which at best is very suspicious behaviour, and at worst is a criminal offence. He could have been arrested for leaving the crime scene before police had arrived to question him. As if this all isn't suspicious enough, the intelligence report then claimed that Jonathan Kennedy, the drag queen who was his partner, had made a phone call at 5 a.m. He had told the man on the phone Lubbock had been found dead and that the man needed to clean the house before the police could come. The phone call to the police wasn't made until 5:50 a.m. So that leaves 50 minutes where apparently they knew Lubbock was dead, but they were cleaning the house. As if the timing isn't strange enough, the 999 phone call that was released is also a bit suspect to me. So the man who made the phone call opens it by saying, "We found a geezer in the pool." He then goes on to state that it's been 4 years since he's been on a night out because he always has the kids on a weekend, as if it's just mildly inconvenient that someone died. He then nonchalantly says, "I think the geezer's dead, mate." It just seems a little bit too blasé for someone whose friend has just been found dead in a pool. I don't know, it made me uncomfortable to listen to it. I was like, So the intelligence report had also alleged that Barrymore had paid off 2 witnesses in order for them not to give any evidence against him. In spite of all of this, the investigation came to an open verdict. In light of this, Lubbock's solicitors decided to reach out to Cheryl, Barrymore's ex-wife. In this inquiry, Barrymore had stated that he could not swim. Cheryl, however, provided an affidavit and a court testimony to say that Barrymore could in fact swim, and so he had lied under oath. She also claimed that Barrymore had been seen several times rubbing cocaine into his own gums as well as the gums of other people. Now, I'm about to fling a lot of dates at you, but they're not really that important. They're in datal order. Anyway, in November of 2002, Barrymore's lawyers demanded that the police looked back into certain matters surrounding Lubbock's death. This focused on the fact that the anal injuries could apparently not have happened in Barrymore's house. The pathologist, in their report, had concluded that the injuries had happened 4 hours previously. This examination took place at 4 p.m. Lubbock had been pronounced dead in a hospital at 8:30 a.m. that day. This meant those injuries could only have been sustained within the morgue while his body was unattended. The solicitors also argued that if the police genuinely believed that those anal injuries and therefore the sexual assault had occurred at Barrymore's home, why did they not include that in the charges against them? They'd arrested them on suspicion of murder but had no mention of sexual assault. The police did investigate these claims and in 2003 came to the conclusion that those injuries had been sustained before the paramedics even arrived at the scene. I don't know how they came to that conclusion. Are they time travellers? I don't know whether there was some kind of misunderstanding with the pathologist's report. But anyway, the police decided, no, those injuries were already there when the paramedics arrived at the scene. In January of 2006, Barrymore decided it was time for him to return to the public eye. And you know, you'd think you'd want something non-controversial, you'd want to make a good impression. So Barrymore decided the perfect show for his return is Celebrity Big Brother. In the same year, so we're still in 2006, a former solicitor called Anthony Bennett started a private prosecution against Barrymore for the misuse of drugs and alcohol at his party. This prosecution comprised 6 different charges. On the 10th of February 2006, a district judge blocked this prosecution on the grounds that there was actually no substantial evidence available to prosecute. There was also the issue that Anthony Bennett was actually no longer a solicitor and was acting independently of Lubbock's family. Still in 2006, Barrymore was interviewed by Piers Morgan for the December issue of GQ magazine. In this interview, he stated that there are other witnesses from the party who are hiding information from the police. On the 2nd of December 2006, the police announced that they were officially reopening this investigation. This was following a lengthy dossier which was submitted by Anthony Bennett, the solicitor that I mentioned earlier. He was actually now a practicing solicitor again, and he was instructed by the Lubbock family. He had catalogued a series of alleged failures on the part of the police. He also claimed there'd been a massive cover-up during the original investigation. On the 1st of March 2007, the Independent Police Complaints Commission announced that they were going to investigate all of these claims. And in May of 2007, the Independent Police Complaints Commission came to the conclusion that 36 of these claims were actually true. On the 22nd of December 2006, following a successful complaint to the Press Complaints Commission, the Sun had to publish a letter from Stuart's father, Terry. This letter was in response to a 5-page feature which the newspaper had done on Barrymore. On the 14th of June 2007, the police rearrested Barrymore and the other 2 men, again on suspicion of murder, but this time they added in serious sexual assault. It was also reported that the police had seized some tapes from Barrymore's literary agent. These tapes contained conversations which had occurred between Barrymore and the agent themselves. It's unknown what these conversations were actually about. On the 15th of June 2007, the police were given permission to question 2 men for a further 12 hours. Barrymore's solicitor confirmed that his client was indeed one of these men. That day, Barrymore was released on bail pending further investigation. His solicitor categorically denies all allegations and claimed that Barrymore was not charged with any offences at all. On the 31st of June 2007, it was announced that Barrymore had been re-bailed and had to appear at Essex Police Station on the 10th of September, which he did. Police were then granted a further 12 hours to continue questioning him. On that same day, Barrymore and the other 2 men were all told that they would not be facing any charges for that night and the case just remained open. In July of 2015, Barrymore started the process of suing the Essex Police. In October 2016, it was announced that High Court papers had actually shown police admitting that his arrest was actually unlawful. I'm going to have to quote this bit. The arresting officer was not fully aware of the grounds for arrest and not by lack of a reason of reasonable grounds to suspect the claimant. So that basically means that they had a reason to arrest Barrymore. They had reason to suspect that he had committed an offence. However, the officer that actually performed the arrest didn't know those reasons. So the police have since admitted that yes, they were wrong. The arrest was unlawful. They had sent the wrong officer. which made them liable on a point of technicality. On the 18th of August 2017, the High Court ruled that Barrymore would be entitled to more than nominal damages due to his unlawful arrest and how it had impacted his career. Now, this hearing was only to decide what sort of compensation he should be given, not the actual value. When it came to the hearing to decide the sum of damages, Barrymore didn't attend, but he did claim that his sum should be over £2.4 million. The case was then appealed to the Court of Appeal, and the judge who heard it decided he was actually only due to nominal damages of £1. So on the 1st of July 2019, the police announced that all charges relating to the wrongful arrest had been dropped and that no compensation would be paid to Barrymore. And that was the last court hearing to do with this case. Since then, police and forensic investigators have looked over and over and over the details, trying to find anything that would be rock-solid proof. As of the 4th of February this year, the police announced a £20,000 reward for anybody with any information which could lead to a conviction. There was a lot to unpack here. I personally think the whole situation is very suspicious, and even if nothing suspicious happened, the very fact that all 8 people at that party claimed to know nothing is suspicious within itself. I don't think it helped that the police made many mistakes. If the crime scene hadn't been cleaned up before the police got there, it could have gone very differently. I personally think they were having some kind of party which was not socially acceptable, shall we say. A lot of drugs involved, maybe a lot of sexual acts involved, and one of them fell into the pool and drowned. And due to the nature of the party, they all panicked and covered it up. That's what I want to believe anyway. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think it was an accident and everybody felt guilty? Do you think something more sinister happened? If you have any case suggestions, let me know because I will look into them. I'm aiming to do 1 video a week on a Wednesday, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Bye!